When we let go of being worried about being judged and we can lean into it and actually make use of it, then we are free, truly free.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Dina Pharant. Previously episode 316 of the 12-minute Convos podcast. The last time we spoke, it was 2 years, 8 months, 17 days, 22 hours, and 45 minutes ago.
I'm always looking for, who else can I learn from? How can I expand myself? And I just keep digging in for more because there's always more. And I love that.
That was then. This is now. How are you doing, Dina?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am excellent. It's a great pleasure to connect with you. What part of the world are you in today?
So I am just north of Toronto, Canada.
Wonderful. So you're in the same place when we first spoke, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, give us an update. What's going on?
So a lot of the same things. I'm still coaching and speaking, training, but I've kind of refined a little bit what I'm doing and really leaning into working more with people that have a bigger vision of where they want to go, 6 and 7 figure earners who are on a mission to show up in a really big way and need to lean into it.
Now, you help individuals through their strategy. Are you still doing that?
Uh, a bit of strategy, but I'm much more in the mindset energy work. So it's a blend. Like I love doing all of it, but I would say probably my primary piece is getting them to lean into what I call the inner dominatrix, which is the energy that people need to step in to be a leader in their business.
All right, so we're into the healing, the master healer side of the conversation that we spoke about, yeah? So
Yes.
how's that been? Dig into that for us, please.
It's good. It's funny. It's like I think back to where was I when we our first conversation, and it's amazing how much the business evolves, right? How much we evolve over that time,
Yes.
and it's interesting because I don't lead with the healing so much anymore, and yet that's still an integral piece of what I do. It is about healing the internal pieces for people, but I lean in a lot more to, okay, how does that show up in your business? How are you showing up in your business? What is the action? But then we need to, kind of backtrack and say, what's underneath, what's creating all of that.
So one of the things I've learned in business is setting up the limited liability. And as you grow, you set up the corporation because you're attempting to separate it from yourself, right? And
Hmm.
now it seems as though it's a full circle around and you're learning how important it is to connect the both to who you are. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good piece that people think, oh, I'll set up this corporation and it'll be an entity unto itself. But I don't think we can separate anymore, especially with social media and how things have, become very integral. Even your personal profiles are searchable. Who you are personally affects and, has a role in your business.
Hmm. Now, the dominatrix. Explain that for us, please.
So the inner dominatrix is an archetype. So I was a dominatrix for 6 years. And I've found that in doing that training and having to become a dominatrix, it changed who I was. It changed how I showed up in my business. It changed, how I showed up in general and being able to do things like negotiating with more ease, being able to say no to things that don't work for me. And, the confidence is a huge piece. Not taking any people's BS, that's definitely a huge factor.
Hmm.
So I find that those skills are vital for anyone in business. In particular, I find that a lot of women are trying to navigate that being strong without being seen as, pushy.
But there's a fine line between being an intuitive and knowing where to draw the line, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. For me, and I think the same for you, is that we can sense what's going on with people. And so knowing what's going on with them and then, taking it a step further and knowing when to say what you know, understanding what they're going to be willing to hear. I think these are, skills that we need to learn and navigate.
How do you remain gentle? Because it is a challenge to remain gentle sometimes when you're faced with these situations where individuals are speaking from a place of pain and they're putting it to you, they're putting that to you. How do you continue or remain gentle?
I think that's the misnomer. I don't think we necessarily have to remain gentle because I think that sets up an idea of thinking that we need to be sugarcoating it for people.
Hmm.
I like dropping into the space of, that it's not about me. And again, I drop in a little lower and say, okay, well, what do they need to hear? And I will show up in the way that's required to invite them to move. So I think of it more as fiercely loving people and being willing to do whatever it takes to invite them to change.
Where's the best place for someone that's listening to connect with you?
So if you want to head over to danapharant.com, so DANAPHARANT.
You shared a really fun memory of being a child and building these tunnels, and you and your brother and your sister in the snow, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
found it to be fabulous then, and then listening and preparing for this conversation, I found it to be fabulous again in terms of helping individuals get through those mazes that they create or are part of their lives. Is that something you're still doing? Do you see yourself, if we look at it metaphorically, connecting?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is navigating the maze of our, the constructs that we make up in our mind and the stories that we've made up and believe about ourselves about what we can or cannot do. So yeah, there's a whole maze within the stories for sure.
When you look back from now to then, the last couple of years, do you have any regrets?
There's things that I can look back and go, oh, if I'd have done this or that, but I don't believe there's anything right or wrong in any of our choices. And so it's kind of impossible to feel regret when there's no wrong choice.
I agree. Yeah. It's an interesting mix, yeah, melting pot.
I am.
Feeling at peace in your own skin. Give us some tips to do that, please.
I think the biggest thing for most people is understanding just how much of the feelings that we have don't even belong to us. So the majority of people are running around and they're like, I'm stressed, I'm anxious. And when I start to get them to connect in with the fact that it's like, well, what if that's not even yours? When you can, shed the stuff that's not yours, when you can shed off those emotions, then the baggage that you're carrying is suddenly 90% lighter. And it's a lot easier to feel good about who you are because you're not trying to fix and change things that aren't even yours to fix or change.
Are you still married?
I am.
How was that? How was everything you've been doing impacted your marriage?
Lovely. You know what? I am so grateful every day. He is my biggest cheerleader. I adore him, and he's happy to support me in whatever direction. He said, if you want to take over the world, you take over the world. And, if you want to stay home, you stay home. So he's really a good supporter for me.
Being authentically confident, willing to be judged.
Mhm.
Is that important?
Huge, huge. Yeah. The willing to be judged, I think most people let that stop them from actually taking action in their life or going for the partner that they want, whatever it is. We're afraid to fully show up because it's like, well, I might offend somebody or somebody might get upset about that or they, whatever. They make up all kinds of stories. But when we let go of being worried about being judged and we can lean into it and actually like make use of it, that's the high level. When we can lean into it and make use of it, then we are free, truly free.
Well, it is a great pleasure, my friend. I want to say thank you for coming back onto the podcast. More so, thank you for being who you are, continuously growing, motivating, and inspiring others. It's really fascinating to be your podcast accountability partner, to check back in 2 years, 8 months. 17 days, 22 hours, and 45 minutes after to find out that you are still seeking after your own unique real self, your own unique real story, your own unique real strengths. It's a really, really inspirational. So thank you for that, my friend. In closing, is there anything else you would like to share with our amazing audience?
One last quote in that when you are willing to lose everything, you can have anything.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Sometimes we don't understand that it's the ashes
Mm-hmm.
that are required for the fertilization, right? And the ashes come from burning it all. So I like
Yes.
that. Love that. All right, Dina. Well, again, my friend, this was a pleasure. I treasure. Thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.